All right. Hey, how many people have been triggered this week? Okay, you've just been a time this week, you're like, thanks for the honesty there. Something happened, it might have invoked a big response, it might have invoked a little response, but there was something in you that was just like, It's just been fun talking about the things that have triggered us over the last few weeks. And then we've sort of had a look at some of the reasons where this can come from. And we've talked about the idea that so sometimes our triggers can be tied back to traumas and things that have happened earlier. So when a small thing happens now, we tie it directly back to an event that took place earlier in our lives. We've also spoken about the fact that, hey, just the reality is many of the things that trigger us, like they're not big things, but they do something in us. And it's a good sort of mirror for us to look at and say, hey, how emotionally mature am I? Like, would an emotionally mature person really respond like that to something like that? And a lot of it's just been looking at some of the things that trigger us. And what I want to do this week, and then as we wrap up the series next week, is start to look at, well, how do we change? How do we no longer react to some of the things that trigger us, but how do we respond with a level of intentionality? And here's the truth. Here's what we're going to unpack a little bit today is that a lot of people are going to start to see some of the stuff that we talk about today, and when we're going to lean in and be like, I've just got to try harder, I've got to do better. But as we talk about this, what I want to help you see is this is one of the most powerful aspects of our faith. And so if you're here as a Christian, I think as we do this, I'm going to ask you to tap in and see the power that you've got within you, because that's going to lead you to change. Because come on, all of us have tried to change out of willpower, right? Come on. Some of us have been pretty good at this. And when we've made some significant changes out of willpower. But what we've probably found, what I've definitely found, and I assume you've found too when you've tried with willpower, it can only get you so far. And if you want to be real honest with yourself, you know there's some things that you've tried to change out of willpower. And you just keep falling back and falling back and falling back. And one of the most incredible things about our Christian faith is that we can tap into a power that is beyond us, that's bigger than us, that is way more powerful and reliable than our willpower. And maybe you're here today and you're not a person of faith. Maybe you're trying to figure out this Christian thing. Maybe your friends brought you along. Maybe you stumbled into this place by accident. I don't know. But what I'm hoping and what I'm seeing, what I'm praying, is that you'll see, man, there's more to this faith than just this idea. That there is this ability that the Christian faith has to bring true transformation to the lives of individuals. And I think that's what you want, because most of us, we have this tension, right, when it comes to being triggered. Like, I know what I should do, and then I do what I don't want to do. And we can control these triggers sometimes for a little bit, and when we go, no, next time that happens, I'm not going to react like that. All of a sudden it happens and we blow up, and there's this like gap between what we know and what we do. And what I'm hoping we'll be able to do a little bit over the next couple of weeks is just close that gap a little bit, so that when those triggering things happen, and those triggering things will happen, that gap isn't so big. Because we live in a world where we all get triggered. And so today I'm just going to wrap around this one verse, okay? And this is what we're talking about today. Is like it's very simple. It's easy to understand, but it's not easy to apply. See, the depth of what we're talking about isn't in understanding what we're talking about. The challenge comes when, can I actually apply this to my everyday life? This is from Romans 12:2, and it says, do not conform to the pattern of this world. Rather be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so I just want to lean into this for a little bit. And then the first thing we're told in this verse is, do not conform. Do not conform to the patterns of this world. See, if we look at the patterns of this world, what are the patterns of this world? What do they lead to? When you're triggered, the world would say, just get angry. That's what everyone else does. When things aren't going your way, get louder. Fight for your right. Assert yourself. If someone's making things difficult for you, make things difficult for them. If someone's pushing you down, you punch back. If things are getting hectic, you've just got to work harder. You look at the patterns of this world, and what are they producing? They're producing people's lives that are full of chaos and busyness and craziness and not a lot of peace. If you look at the patterns of this world, where we see a lot of people with increasing levels of anger and frustration and then taking them out on people that are around them. Where we see people that are, I don't know, seeming to have so much available to us at our fingertips, yet we're sadder and more depressed than ever. We live in a world where there's so much ability for people to connect, but there's no real human connection. If we look at the fruit of the patterns of this world, I think most of us would agree, hey, I don't want that. One encouragement might be, hey, we want to be weird people. Why do we want to be weird? Because normal isn't working. If we want what everyone else has got, we should do what everyone else is doing. But when it comes to how most people are living, financially stressed, relationally isolated, is that what we really want? We don't want to conform to the patterns of this world. This word conform literally means to be pressed into a mold. Like when there's a bottle here, a water bottle, when these bottles are made, that this plastic, the substance is being put into a mold and everything comes out looking the same. It's just saying, hey, do not conform. Do not be pushed into the mold of the world. And when it comes to how we sort of often react to the things that trigger us, a lot of us, but we've got default patterns, right? Because some of us have been alive for maybe 13, 14 years, but a lot of us in this room have been alive a lot longer than that, and we've created these patterns. Some of them have been learned from our family and what we've seen modeled. Some have just been learned through repetition. We've done the same thing over every time it's happened, and it's just, created that pathway in our brains, got bigger and bigger and bigger. So some of these patterns are cultural, and so you go into another culture and see, man, the way that they respond and react and do things is so different than the way that I've seen things. And that can be like big, massive cultural things, like in terms of how countries think and operate, but also just in terms of how families operate and some of that sort of stuff. So some of this has literally been survival strategies because we've had to adapt because of something, so that's just caused this reaction in us. And what Paul says in this little verse is, hey, don't stay in that mold. See, the world's patterns are these, right? Like react immediately, protect yourself, get even, hold grudges, let your emotions control you. That the world's pattern says that, hey, we're a victim of our circumstances. The world's pattern says, I can't help how I feel. That's the pattern, and we've been pressed into that mold all of our lives. But just because that's our pattern doesn't mean it has to stay our pattern. See, Paul comes out and he says, do not conform to the patterns of this world. If there's no intentionality, if there's no thought given, we are going to walk in the direction of the patterns of this world. That's where we're going to go. That's where we're going to drift to. There's a reason they're the patterns of this world, because that's where everyone drifts to. But Paul offers an opportunity. He says, be transformed. And again, when he's talking about this transformation here, he's using this idea of like a metamorphosis, like an incredible transformation. This idea of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. It's this huge, significant transformation. It's not like, I don't know, like a small transformation, like, oh, my house was looking a bit dirty, so I water blasted it, like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, it's nice, but it's not a wildly wicked transformation, right? It's more of like, man, my house was looking pretty run down, so I bolted over and built a brand new house that just does not even resemble what was there in the first place. Significant. He says, be transformed. And this is what he's saying, and this is what I want you to know, that you can change, I can change. But what's powerful about this change isn't simply going to come through us trying harder, through us white-knuckling things, through us suppressing our emotions or simply pretending. But Paul actually tells us how we can see this transformation take place. And he says it happens through the renewing of our mind. I love it how Paul gives us the how. He doesn't just say, don't do that, do this. But he actually tells us how. He says, don't conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed. And team, if you want to be transformed, this is how you do it. You do it by renewing your mind, by rewiring what's going on inside of your head. This again, it's another pushback here can be, well, is this just about positive thinking? And I'll tell you what, if you're not a person of faith, if you haven't got the Christian faith that you're building your life on, this teaching and understanding of who Jesus is, it is positive thinking because you've got nothing else to fall back on. But when your life, as Jesus said, is built on the rock, is built on His words and who He is and what He's done and what He's doing, you've actually got a firm foundation on which you can build your life. And I'd suggest that what Paul's saying here isn't just build your life on some positive thoughts. He's saying, no. I want you to build your life on the teachings and the person of Jesus. So it's not about positive thinking. It's about retraining our brain with God's truth and who He is. And so what do? We're going to retrain our brain a little bit. 2 Corinthians 10, it says, we take captive every thought and make it obedient to Christ. We take captive every thought. I don't know about you, but my brain goes off in 100 different directions so often. How do I take captive every thought? This idea means there's a level of proactivity here. We're being active, we're being intentional. That in regards to what we're talking about today, this is something we have to do every time we're triggered. We've got to transform our mind. See, our old mind might say this: they hurt me, so I'm going to hurt them back. But our renewed mind's going to pause and say something like, Father, forgive them. Our old mind, I don't have to defend myself. Step into my renewed mind. I entrust myself to Him who judges justly. Old mind. I'm defined by how I react. New mind. I'm defined by how Christ responded on my behalf. Old mind. I can't help how I react. New mind. I can do all things, including respond well, because of Him who strengthens me. What we have to do is we have to take responsibility. We have to take responsibility. So this is how life works, right? In life, things happen to us, and I'm using some language from a man called Stephen Covey here. He says, in life, things happen to us. That's the stimulus. And then there's our response to that stimulus, right? And he tells the story about Pavlov's dog, who this dog's trained. That it comes to them that every time a bell's, what's it called, rung, ding, 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 that food appears. And so initially, when the bell got rung, the dog would just sit there and be like, because just hears a bell. But then he see food comes every time that bell comes out. And what happens over a period of time, the dog is so conditioned that every time it hears the bell ring, that it expects food. And so the dog, the first time it hears the bell, there's no physical reaction to it about it being hungry, to it showing that it wants to go and eat. But later on, the researchers, they can ring the bell and all of a sudden the dog starts just showing external signs that it's hungry and it's ready to eat. And it goes straight to exactly where the food goes because it's been programmed and trained. And in a lot of us, we can think, hey, there's certain things that are going to happen in our life, the stimulus, and that's going to cause this reaction. But I love what Covey writes. He says this. He says, look at the word responsibility. He says, responsibility. The ability to choose your response. Highly proactive people recognize that responsibility. They do not blame circumstances, conditions, or conditioning for their behavior. Their behavior is a product of their own conscious choice based on values rather than a product of their conditions based on feeling. He says, every time something happens to us, and he's based this theory on some work on a book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And then he says every time something happens to us, we're in this place and we have the responsibility to choose our response. You have the ability, I have the ability to choose my response. No, I might not be able to choose exactly how I feel. That might make me feel sad. That might make me feel frustrated. That might make me feel angry. That might make me feel something. But I've still got the ability to choose my response. Just as you have the ability to choose your response. They can say that thing about me. I do not have to jump straight to this action. I can choose how I react to it. We have the responsibility. This is what Paul's kind of saying, right? Do not conform to the pattern of this world. The pattern of this world would say, hey, when this happens to you, this is how you should react. When this happens, you should seek revenge. When this happens, you should get defensive. When this happens, you should go into a shame cycle. When this happens, this is what takes place. But we're not going to conform to the pattern of this world. Rather, we're going to be transformed. We're going to choose our response. We're not going to react to things. We're going to respond to things. That's not easy, right? Because if it was easy, we'd all do it. If it was all easy, we'd never react. If it was all easy, things that trigger us wouldn't really matter because, well, we just wouldn't get triggered. They'd just trigger us and we'd just push through them. And so if we're going to change, we've got to pick up our responsibility. And the hard thing about this is it doesn't come naturally to us or we'd already be doing it. So I just want to give you a quick little framework here. Let's just get a little bit practical. The best thing we can do when we first get triggered is to pause. Do you know that in and of itself takes a huge amount of discipline? When we first get triggered, just to pause, to take a breath, to shut our mouth. Just because I think it doesn't mean I need to say it. We've got those people in our life, right? There's people that talk so much. You're like, I appreciate your voice. But you don't need to tell me everything that you're thinking. You're messing up my head. Just go quiet for a little bit. Just because we think we don't need to say it. One of the most powerful things we can do is insert the pause. I don't know how long. Might be 3 seconds. Might be 5 seconds. Might be 10 seconds. The interesting thing about a pause is the pause always feels a lot more awkward for the person pausing than it does maybe for some other people. Sometimes it's better to be a little bit awkward than it is to react. Sometimes you can pause and not let anyone know that you're pausing because all you have to do is take a little drink and no one knows that you're pausing on purpose, but you're just drinking. Sorry, my mouth's a bit dry. See that? I just bought myself 10 seconds to figure out what to say next. See, if I was smart, I would have had my bottle up here and that would have been pre-planned. But I'm not quite there yet. One day I'll get there. But did you get what I mean? Well, we can pause. Okay, I think the most powerful thing we can do if we're going to change, if we're not going to conform to the patterns of this world, if we're not going to conform to the patterns that we want to get out of, if we're not going to conform to the patterns that are destructive, but rather we're going to embrace the ways of Jesus, we've got to pause for a moment so we can step forward and do it. We're going to insert the pause. What happens when we pause? Here's a real easy thing we can do. We can just apply this. So this is called the stop method. And this takes a little bit of pre-thought. You want to think about some of the stuff first. And that's the good thing. If you've been here through the series, maybe you've identified some of the things that trigger you. This is what makes this easier. There's going to be things that trigger you this week that you haven't even thought of yet. That's just what happens in life, right? But for some of the ones that we think through, this is what we want to do. When it happens, when I get triggered, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to speak. I'm not going to act immediately. I'm going to pause. I'm going to grab that cup. I'm going to remove myself from the room. I'm going to go, hang on a minute, I've got a phone call. Give myself a little bit of space. And I'm going to think, what's really happening? What's really going on here? What is it that I'm feeling? Then I'm going to observe. And this is the hard part. This is why we need to do a little bit of pre-work. This is where, if you've got a Christian faith, you've got something to fall back on. We're going to observe. We're going to say, well, what does God's truth say about this situation? What does God's truth say about the way that I'm feeling or the way that I should feel? And then I'm going to proceed. I'm going to choose my response based on truth, not on that instant reaction to what I'm feeling. I'll do a few examples, okay? A few examples, just to try and make this feel a little bit more concrete. Here's the first one, triggering. Your manager, your boss, gives you critical feedback on a project in front of a team. No one likes that. We've all been there. No one likes it. Getting called out in front of other people. Not the best managing situation, not the way that we should, but hey, it happens, right? Initial impulse here, what happens? I want to defend myself. I want to make excuses. Oh, I want to maybe just shut down in shame and embarrassment and just sort of sit there. What does a stop method do? Stop method would say, okay, just pause for a second. Take a breath. Don't immediately respond. Just pause. Maybe you can throw out a little sentence in there to help it. And then think, what's really going on here? And in this example, we might be thinking, no, my boss is giving me feedback, my team's watching. My boss is giving me feedback, the rest of the team's watching. Okay, that's actually what's going on. How am I feeling? Okay, well, what am I feeling right now? Oh, I'm feeling embarrassed. I'm feeling defensive. I'm feeling like I'm not good enough. Why am I feeling this? The reason I'm feeling this is it feels like public humiliation. It feels like I'm being called out. And then if I want to observe, if I want to bring some of God's truth into this, I might be able to remind myself that I'm secure in Christ. My worth isn't based on perfect performance. I might choose a different path. I might choose to remind myself that feedback is a gift for growth, not a verdict on my value. I might think that, hey, God's opinion of me doesn't change based on how this project goes. See, it depends, but one of these things, all of those are helpful. One of them is probably going to be more helpful for you than another. But I'm going to observe, I'm going to bring God's truth into it. And that's going to then enable me to proceed. It's going to enable me to respond. Say something like, hey, thanks for the feedback. Can you help me understand specifically what needs to change? It might be, hey, I appreciate that. I'll work on those areas. You might be able to go back to the person even later on and say, hey, thanks, man. That was really, really hard to hear in front of the team. But I really do want to learn from it. You see the difference? If our life is built on our faith and on the words and the personhood of Jesus, we've got so much to fall back on to help us in this. If it's not, if you're trying to apply this and you're going, okay, well, what does this look like for me? I'm not a follower of Jesus. I'm here because my mum said I had to come because my friend brought me along. I'd suggest it gets really, really hard. This is where these positive thoughts come, right? Like you have to fill it with, no, I'm important. It doesn't matter. Well, that's a good thought. You are. I reckon almost any of those positive thoughts that you might think, you can probably tie back to something that God says about you. And it's just interesting because you've been made in God's image, and maybe no one's told you that. Maybe you've got a little bit of unpacking here, but I want you to understand that a lot of these thoughts that you might try and build up out of this place of just positive thinking are probably things that God's put on the inside of you because you're created in His image. You just haven't realized that yet. But you've got to observe something. You've got to point back to this truth because that's where the power comes from that enables us to move forward. Here we go, another example. You're stuck in traffic. You're going to be late. You've got an important meeting. You're meant to be there at 8 a.m. You're driving in. Oh, this is not happening. No, there is no possible way that I'm going to arrive on time, ready to go at 8 a.m. Right? What's your initial impulse here? Rage. See those cars going in and out of lanes, going, stuff you. Honk. You build up, get madder as you go. And then what happens? You turn up late and you walk in and you're angry and stressed and the thing's never going to go well anyway, is it? And that's sort of what's going on here. We're in the stuck in traffic, we're going to be late. Okay, well, what are we going to do? We're going to stop. We're not going to stop the car because we're going to be even later. That's stupid. But we're going to mentally stop. We're not going to go down this mental spiral. Maybe a moment comes you can take your hands off the wheel. Maybe it's at a red light. Maybe the traffic's so bad you can just take your hands off for a second and close your eyes, take a deep breath. I'm just going to pause. We're going to think what's really happening. Okay, there's this crazy traffic. This is beyond my control. I can't change this. I can't put a siren on top of my car. Maybe a couple of you can, but most of us can't. And push through it. I'm going to say, well, what am I feeling right now? I'm anxious, frustrated. Here's a big one for a lot of us, I think, especially the guys. Powerless. And you go, why? Why am I feeling this way? Maybe it's because I don't want to look bad or unprofessional. Maybe it's because I just need control. There's a whole lot of things there that could be underlining it. We're going to observe. What is God's word? What is God's truth here? God's truth might be this. I'm not in control and that's okay. Because God is sovereign. I might need to remind myself, my worth isn't tied to me being on time. I'm loved regardless of how I perform. It might be, hey, this is an opportunity. We love these opportunities to practice patience. Okay? And then we're going to proceed. I've calmed my mind down. I've put my mind down. I've thought this through. I might be able to send a text. Sorry, traffic's crazy. I'm going to be 15 minutes late. We might be able to use the time to pray, to ask God, can you please help me rewire this change into me over and over and over as I go? The truth is, either way, we're going to arrive late, right? If we react, we're going to turn up angry, stressed. If we apply the stop method, you're probably going to walk in calm, patient, and a lot better headspace. One more. This is for someone, I don't know who you are, but this is your thing. Your teenager rolls their eyes when you're talking to them. That's the trigger. You're talking to your teenager. Here we go. Rolling those eyes. Initial impulse, right? Don't roll your eyes at me, go to your room. Do you want me to turn off the Wi-Fi? I'll unplug that thing. I've got the power. Right. Stop method in action. Stop. Don't escalate things immediately. Breathe. Remember, they are a teenager. They are learning emotional regulation too, right? Think, what's really going on? They rolled their eyes. That's disrespectful. Yep. But it's not the end of the world, is it? Nothing's broken. What am I feeling? What's going on in here? Maybe I'm feeling disrespected, dismissed, maybe angry. You ask why. Again, there could be multiple reasons why. Might be, man, this is triggering that my voice doesn't matter sort of thinking that we might have on the inside of us. It might be triggering this, like, nobody loves me, nobody cares. I've got nothing to offer. Observe, what does God's truth say? And their disrespect doesn't diminish my worth, for I'm already God's beloved. This is a teaching moment, not a power struggle. Might remind yourself that love is patient. I want to be the loving person here, and love is calling me to be patient. And then I'm going to proceed calmly. Might be able to say calmly, hey, I need you to actually show me some respect when I'm talking to you. If they continue, if they keep being silly, you might be able to continue. Hey, let's finish this conversation when you're ready to be respectful. When that is, you come let me know. Until then, maybe no Wi-Fi. Later. Sometimes we're going to just step away from it. Later, when everyone's calm, just bring the conversation back up. Hey, what was going on earlier? You seemed really mad. Help me unpack that. Help me understand that, because I didn't mean to make you mad. I was just asking a question about how your day was. But you see the power of this, right? But here's the thing. If we don't know our triggers, it's almost impossible for us to find those truths. So that's why the work we've done already is so important, because we know our triggers so we can then go and find the truths. Some of us, we need to spend some time going through the scripture, coming to know who God is so we can learn some of these truths. And then we've got to practice. First time we do this, it's going to feel awkward. Second time, it's going to feel awkward. Third time, it's going to feel awkward. Fourth time, you're not going to do it and you're going to react rather than respond, and you're not going to beat yourself up. It's going to move forward. But here we've got to remember that failure isn't final. It's just feedback. The fact that you noticed that you failed means you're already 5 steps ahead of where you were. So just quickly, because I just looked at the time. I just have to tie this back to this, because this shows about why what Jesus has done matters so much for us. You see, it truly is Jesus' death and resurrection that makes this possible. See, it's the cross that breaks the pattern's power over us. It's the cross that breaks this conforming pattern. The cross breaks the power of that over us. Because think about it, again, we say this every week at the series, but Jesus, he faced the ultimate triggers. He was betrayed by a friend. He was denied by his closest disciple. He was abandoned by everyone. He was falsely accused. He was mocked. He was tortured. He was crucified unjustly. Now, look at what Jesus did. When he was betrayed by his friend Judas, he looked at him and said, "Friend, what do you come for?" When Peter promised he wasn't going to deny him, Jesus looks at him, I think, with love, with compassion, and he later restores him. When Jesus was falsely accused, he didn't open his mouth. When he's mocked and he's beaten, he didn't retaliate. On the cross, after everything that had happened, what did Jesus pray? "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Jesus didn't react to the world's pattern. He responded according to his Father's will. And this is the truth that we talk about. Jesus endured all of these triggers for us. When he died on that cross, he broke the power of sin, including our reactive, out-of-control patterns. He paid the price for every time you and I have reacted badly. He defeated the shame that keeps us stuck. The cross tells us that our worst reactions don't define us, but Jesus' perfect response does. And in the resurrection, it gives us new power to change. You see, it's not just about what Jesus did on the cross, it's about what took place 3 days later. The resurrection unleashed new life. When Jesus rose from the dead, he didn't simply come back as the old Jesus. He came back with a resurrected body, transformed, glorified, powerful. And here's what Romans 12:2 is saying to us in a roundabout way. That same resurrection power is available to you and to me. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead, Paul says in another passage, that same power lives in us, and it's the power that can transform our patterns. We're not simply trying to change through willpower. Rather, we're trying to tap into resurrection power. You see, the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of the risen Christ lives in us. That means that we can pause when we're triggered. That we can choose a different response. That we can break patterns, even those patterns we've had for decades. See, this isn't about self-improvement. This is about supernatural transformation. A renewed mind, that's resurrection thinking. Paul says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Our mind's been trained by the world's pattern. We've talked about those. But the resurrection gives us access to a whole new operating system. Renewing our mind isn't simply about thinking those positive thoughts. It's reprogramming our brain with resurrection truth. Every time we're triggered and we choose to pause instead of react, to speak truth into what's going on instead of lies, every time we choose to respond rather than retaliate, we're living in resurrection power. That's us being transformed. And the gospel, it changes everything about how we handle triggers. Come on, because of the cross, our worst reactions, they're forgiven. Our shame, it's removed. The pattern's old power is broken off. We're no longer defined by our failures. And because of the resurrection, new power is available to us. We actually can change through transformation. The Spirit can live on the inside of us. Transformation is possible. And because of Jesus, we have the model of perfect emotional control under ultimate pressure. We have a Savior who truly understands temptation and triggering. We have access to the same power that raised him from the dead. This is why self-help fails, but the gospel can succeed. Self-help says, try harder, do better, just stick at it. You can do this. Give yourself that self-talk of, you're the man, you're the man, you're the man, you can do it, yeah. But the gospel says, no. Jesus has already done it. Now live from his victory, not for his victory. We're no longer trying to earn transformation. We're accessing transformation that's already ours through the resurrection of Jesus. See, Romans 12:2, it isn't a command that we have to achieve. Rather, it's an invitation to participate in what Jesus has already accomplished. He broke the world's pattern at the cross. He unleashed new life through the resurrection. He offers us that same power through the Spirit. Our job, simply to partner with what he's already doing. See, this isn't theory. This is the power of the gospel. See, the same Jesus who turned water into wine, who calmed storms with a word, who raised some others from the dead, and who rose from the dead himself, that same Jesus lives in us, and he is in the business of transformation. He's not just there to forgive our reactions, but he's in the business of transforming them and changing them. Come on, let's not conform to the pattern of this world. Let's not react. Let's not defend, attack, spiral. Rather, let's be transformed by the renewing of our mind. Through the death and the resurrection of Jesus, through the power of the Holy Spirit, through the truth of Jesus' words, we can change. Not because we're strong enough, but because he who began a good work in us is faithful to complete it. The cross, it proves he loves you enough to die for your worst reactions. The resurrection proves he has the power to change them. And the Spirit proves he's with you every step of the way. That's the gospel. That's why transformation is possible. Thanks, guys.